Autopsy already running on my computer. So now I'm going to choose create new case. Just click over here. And it brings up this case information dialog box. So of course, if we want to configure our case properly, we probably need to look back at the briefing for the case, and this is dog napping scenario. Let me see if this handout gives us any specific advice on how to name this case. We can probably just label it L30 right now. This will create the corresponding subfolder for the case in the directory that we choose. And remember that I decided to have my directory to be Autopsy cases under CIT 155. So I'm going to change this and take a look at this. It's an empty folder. So this is what I'm going to change on my machine. So I'm just going to change it to this folder. This is going to be a single user because I never configured anything for multi-user. And this is the prompt for the location of this Autopsy case. Alright, so this looks good. I'm going to click next, and I'm naming my case L30. It's easy to just correlate with the name of the lab. Yeah, so this is going to be used as a directory, I believe. So let's keep an eye on the open directory right here, and yeah, so it's just created this subfolder, and you see that it configures all this additional subdirectories that were discussed in a training video, and you can also find information about this in our handout for this week. So the case number, let's just continue using L30. Case name, again, this likely is going to come directly from the case brief, which I have opened already a few times. Okay, so this is going to be Renzik dog napping case. So we're going to actually, no, this is examiner information. I'm sorry. So that we can enter somewhere else in the report. So you just examiner, right? Examiner, you enter your phone here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, something like this. Your email and some notes if you want. So here we could enter information about the case like this. And there could also be additional organization metadata. For instance, you can add a logo of your lab or organization, which will become visible in autopsy forensic reports. So there's some organizational level information that you can add, and you can manage multiple organizations. And so this is also a nice set of features. I'm going to just click finish. Alright, so it just goes through a series of dialog boxes and creates this new case, which is going to be configured right here. And you can see that it already has opened and created a DB file right here. So this is MySQL database file, which will be used to store information about the case. So everything that we do internally in the case will be saved in this file, and this is a relational database. And it also should already start looking familiar. You have seen this in the handout and the training video, the type of the source. So just very briefly, once again, disk image is choice number 1, because most of the time you're taking the image of the drive and you're doing your investigation using the image. However, for triage, like, you know, emergency situations, you can just open local disk. And of course, if you do, then make sure that you running your Autopsy as administrator. In general, it's a good idea to run forensic tools as administrator, so there's no any sort of unnecessary interactions or interventions from the operating system, which will be sometimes getting in the way of using certain tools. So anyway, so local disk logical files are just files, right, that you can open. Unallocated space image file, so this is sort of like an image of a drive, for instance, which did not have any file system, any partitions or any file systems on that system. So you may still want to be able to carve out some information and open files like this. Logical imagery results, it's just internal format of the Autopsy, and something else that's going to be discussed later on, and also other proprietary format. So I'm just opening my disk image and clicking next, and so it gives me the path to the location of my forensic images, and of course I'm going to need to change this to the location of my forensic images. Switching back to Autopsy and changing this location, say browse, and as instructed in our laboratory exercise, we need to only add, at this stage of our exercises, we only need to add device 1 laptop, which is the first file here. So we'll just say open. Okay. And one very important part of data source, which will be this image in our case, is a configuration of a time zone. It is utterly important that you should, to the best of your knowledge, you need to be able to specify what time zone this drive likely came from. So if this was used in a different time zone, it's absolutely the best idea to specify the time zone that you know was used to create, or was, if this computer was used in a specific time zone. But I'll just keep the Eastern time zone like this. And that is very important for many cases. Just this is not just something that you just click next. You really have to pay attention to what the time zone is. Okay, and we're just going to click next. All other fields are disabled. It's okay. And according to this lab exercise, we need to deselect all ingest modules. Now this would, so you can select them individually like this, but right now we're just going to click deselect all, so that would clear all the list of all of these modules. So these are called ingest modules, and notice that as we were looking at the choices for ingest modules, in the background Autopsy already loaded this image file into its case, into this brand new case, into this environment. And in general, you don't have an option to save anything inside Autopsy. As it performs tasks, and as you click around and do some searches, open files, navigate through the tree view of your data sources, the changes that are taking place accordingly are saved in that database file that I told you earlier, in this file. For instance, we just added this data source, but it was already processed in the background by Autopsy, and you see it has grown to 230 megabyte in size. So this is the database of our case, and of course this entire structure, this directory structure of our cases has to be preserved by you, the forensic examiner. This is your work, and this is where you spend a lot of time doing your research. So this is the file that you need to be able to back up and pay attention to this place on your drive. Also, as it suggests in this lab that you deselect all ingest modules, this is not what you typically do, but we're doing this only to explore various Autopsy modules later on in our exercises, so that we would like to be able to explore the results of recent activity as a next step, for instance, or some other email parser or some other ingest module in the future, and see what kind of change it makes in the case, so that we can learn about individual modules. In most cases, you'd probably just check mark everything that you're going to investigate. And remember, this list often corresponds directly to the scope of your search warrant. If this is a criminal investigation, you just, like, if you only have authority to search for emails, you definitely not want to checkmark any other parts here. Like, you're not going to be looking for EXIF information about pictures. You're only going to investigate emails, and that would be your choice. In a lot of cases, you don't have any kind of restrictions. Once you get the image, you can search the entire image, and then of course you just choose the parts that you want to process. And just to kind of highlight the idea of ingest modules, so basically what we have is that we've loaded our data sources. Right now is just one file right here. So we have this data file, and the idea of Autopsy case is that it creates this tree describing all basic parts of this data source. But now the next step, not just to load it, but also to be able to use this file as a data source. And now you can direct this to various types of ingest modules. And when you do, then this information will be processed by these various data sources that you select, and the information will be then placed somewhere in this tree, so that you have a chance to basically find the results somewhere in the tree, and we'll be discussing where it's going to be. And so once you process these ingest modules, their output is going to be found in different places in your case. At this stage, I am not doing any of this work. Today, we're just primarily going to focus on the data source itself. So no ingest modules, just uncheck everything, deselect, and next. Okay, and now it reports that it has loaded everything, and it tells me that there were some non-critical errors. I'm not going to bother with this view log. I can always take a look at this log later on. So finish, and we have our structure